Hey, so in this series, I'm continuing to answer your questions. And today's question is, how can I improve my listening skills in English? So the good news is that there are quite a few things you can do to improve your listening skills, not just one thing. So here are my top tips to improve your listening skills in English. First up, learn to listen actively. There are different types of listening. So we have active listening and passive listening. Now, passive listening is when you are pretty much hearing sounds, but you're not really paying attention. So examples of passive listening would be if you are listening to music in the background, or there's a TV show playing maybe while you're cooking or doing some chores, but you're not really paying attention to what you are listening to. It's more like noise or sound going on, but you're not really thinking about whatever you're listening to, all right? Whereas active listening is when we listen to understand. We listen and pay attention. We listen and think about what we are listening to. So it's very, very important that first of all, when you are working on your listening skills, you are listening actively rather than passively. I have seen a lot of things online where people just kind of listen to English when they sleep or listen to English when they're doing other things. And while of course this is not going to hurt you, there's nothing wrong with that, it's not necessarily going to strengthen your listening skills because you are listening for understanding, for comprehension, right? So of course you do need to focus. So first up, make sure that whenever you're practicing your listening, you are listening actively. Next up, learn to exercise different types of listening skills. Yes, there are also different types of listening skills within listening. So we can listen for the overall meaning of something, the general meaning, general understanding, or we can listen for specific details. So sometimes we need specific details and sometimes we need to understand the main point or the general idea. For example, imagine that you are in a busy airport and you're waiting for your flight. There will be lots of announcements going on. You're going to hear lots of announcements, but you don't need to actively listen to every single announcement. Instead, you need to exercise your passive listening. You hear an announcement, you tune in, and then when you identify your flight number, a specific detail, then you pay closer attention, okay? Another example is if you have to take an English exam like the IELTS test. So on the IELTS listening test, you need to learn to listen for specific details. You will listen to about 30 minutes of audio, but you don't need all of the information that you hear. You actually need to pick out and identify specific details and specific information, okay? Now, on the other hand, let's say you are having a conversation with a friend, a classmate, a colleague. In these situations, it's more important to get the general meaning, the general idea of the conversation. Or if you're watching a TV show or listening to a podcast or watching a video. In these cases, you really want to focus on the overall idea. Now, developing these skills is really gonna help you because you will be able to look at every situation individually and think to yourself, okay, in this situation, I need to focus more on the general idea or the overall meaning of whatever I'm listening to or whoever I'm listening to. And in this situation, I need to focus more on specific details or listen for specific details. And it's okay if I miss some things, if I don't understand some words, that's okay. So understanding these different types of listening and these different types of skills is really, really helpful. Next, pay attention to pronunciation when you are listening. So when we speak in our own native language, we naturally connect some words, connect some sounds, connect our speech, we shorten things. And of course, when we listen to native speakers of our own language, we can easily understand what they're saying. We don't even think about these connected sounds. However, when we listen to speakers of another language, it's sometimes hard for us to identify the sounds and to hear where one word ends and the next word begins. So, paying attention to natural English pronunciation is very helpful because it will help you to identify these connected sounds, and it will help you with your own pronunciation as well. Next, practice listening to different accents. So recently I've gotten quite a few comments on Instagram about accents. Some people say that they really like my accent. Some people say that they really like British accents or American accents, or they can't understand certain accents, or they want to get rid of their accent or change their accents. Surprisingly, accents are such a popular topic, and I can probably make a whole separate video about them. But it is important for you to practice listening to different accents because English has become a global language. So people all over the world communicate in English professionally, academically. There's a lot of media published in English as well. And you're not always going to hear people with a perfectly clear British or American accent. Unfortunately, this is not the reality. So practicing listening only to a British accent, or only to an Australian accent, or only to an American accent, or whatever, is not really a realistic reflection of the English that you are going to hear in the real world, especially if you live in a multicultural or multinational city. For example, Toronto, where I am from, is extremely multicultural, and you meet people from all over the world who have completely different accents, and they all communicate in English. So it is important to practice listening to different accents, because if you feel like I really can't understand this specific accent, that's only because you don't have enough exposure to that accent, all right? So if you have trouble understanding a specific accent in English, just practice listening to it, because the more people that you understand, the better. The next tip, keep it short. Sometimes if you listen to something that is too long, you can get lost. If you get lost, you will get off track and you will get distracted. You'll forget what you were listening to. You'll feel overwhelmed, and you will be more likely to stop listening and to give up on whatever you were listening or whatever you were watching. Instead, I would recommend, especially if you are just starting to practice your listening at home, I would recommend listening to shorter clips. So you can start with something that's 5 minutes long, even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, depending on your current level and your current ability. Now, one huge benefit of listening to shorter clips is that you can listen more than once. Chances are you are going to have to listen more than once if you are listening to something that is an appropriate level for you. You might not get everything the first time, and you might have to listen more than once. So if you listen to something, to a clip or watch a video that's 5 or 10 minutes, then you can easily finish it and listen again. Whereas if you watch a show that's 1 hour long and you get lost, watching it again is going to take you a very long time, all right? So start with shorter clips and work your way up to longer clips, the more confident and the more comfortable you feel. The next tip, do not stress if you don't understand everything. Now, one of the biggest challenges or frustrations that my students have faced when it comes to listening practice is they get really stuck and really focused on the things that they don't understand. So oftentimes when I've done listening tasks with my students, we listen to something and they get kind of fixated on this word or phrase that they didn't understand. And then the audio continues to roll and they're still stuck on this one thing. And as a result, they missed the rest of the audio, or they became frustrated and they're like, this is too hard, I don't understand it. And chances are this has probably happened to you as well. So instead, you need to focus on the general meaning. Always focus on the general meaning first, okay, of whatever you are listening to. And another thing you can do is ask yourself, how much of this did I understand? What percentage of this did I understand? This is a question that I always ask my students when we do a listening exercise. I always ask them, how much do you feel you understood? 50%, 60%, 70%, and most of the time they say around 70%, okay? So what I'm doing with this question is getting them to focus on the fact that, okay, I understood 70% instead of I didn't understand this 30%, okay? This approach will help you to reframe your way of thinking. Next, listen to different topics. Now, I do always say, listen to things that you like, listen to things that you need, listen to things that you care about. And now I'm saying, listen to different topics. Now, let me explain. The benefit of listening to different topics is that you learn how to talk about different topics, okay? So, for example, imagine that you really like business and you listen to business podcasts, you watch videos about business, you are an expert on business, you can talk about business, you can engage in a conversation about business. However, if someone starts talking about politics or psychology or relationships or travel or culture or food or whatever, and you don't really have practice talking about those topics, you might freeze, you might feel nervous. And if you listen to other people talking about topics that you want to be able to talk about, this will really, really help you. You will get new ideas, new vocabulary, new concepts that you can then take away and discuss in your own conversations. So listening to different topics will of course help to develop your listening skills, but it will also help develop your speaking skills. The next tip, listen to authentic audio, authentic speech, authentic pronunciation, rather than listening to audio that comes along with English textbooks. The reason for this is because if you listen to audio from a textbook or from textbooks only, you are hearing very unnatural, very slow, very unrealistic recordings. And this is not how people talk in the real world. So I always recommend using more authentic audio like podcasts, TV, YouTube videos, interviews. There's so many great options, all right? So whenever possible, always use authentic audio. You're gonna hear people with different accents, different pronunciation. You're gonna hear people who speak slower and people who speak faster, and that is okay because that is a more accurate reflection of the English that you're going to hear in the real world. So if you wanna develop your listening skills, you need to listen to real, authentic audio. And it might be a little bit difficult at first, that's okay. Online, when you watch videos, there's usually an option to slow the video down. You can also use subtitles, you can pause, you can watch it again. So you've got lots of different options to help make authentic audio easier to listen to. Which brings us to today's final tip, don't give up. Listening is an essential skill for learning a language. It's absolutely necessary for you to develop your listening skills. So if you're listening to authentic English and you find it too difficult, that is okay. Don't give up. There are some options to help you make it easier. So usually when you watch something online or you listen to something online, there's very often an option on many websites to slow it down or speed it up. So the first thing you can do is try slowing down the audio, okay? The next thing you can do is use subtitles or text to help you. Just give it a try without the text first. but don't let it stress you. If you really, really need it, go ahead and use it, okay? So slow down the audio, use text. You can pause and think about what you've just listened to, and you can always listen again, all right? So don't give up. If you are struggling with your listening skills, try following these tips. And I want to remind you about the weekly English Words membership. This is a monthly membership created by myself and teacher Tiffany, specifically designed to help you with your listening skills and your vocabulary. So I will link the weekly English Words membership down below this video so you can check it out. As well, don't forget to grab your free ebook, English Conversations Made Simple. It's also linked down below this video. So thank you so much for this very helpful question. I hope that you implement these tips. And if you have any other tips that have helped you improve your listening skills, please do share them with us in the comments. So thanks again. If you have another question, drop it down below, and I'll see you soon in the next one.